The Hilton sale is on. Now through September 29th, you can save up to 20% on stays this fall and beyond. Long weekends, last-minute getaways, holiday gatherings. There's a Hilton stay for all of them. More moments, more experiences, more destinations. Now 20% off for a limited time because it matters where you stay. Don't wait. Book by September 29th and save up to 20% at Hilton.com. Terms apply. Hilton for the stay.
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner, by knockout, is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
Welcome to the Sportsman's Voice Roundup, your weekly look at conservation and sporting community news happening across the nation and on the Hill. Thanks for tuning in. This is the TSV Roundup. It's Wednesday. Welcome back to another edition of the Sportsman's Voice Roundup, your weekly look at conservation news from across the country for the week of September 22nd, 2025. This week brought to you by Bass Pro Shops, Richard Childress Racing, and the National Shooting Sports Foundation. Thank you all for your support. This week's show, our lead story, South Atlantic states chart new course for red snapper management. That is brought to us by Chris Horton, who unfortunately is once again on the road and not available to join us. So I will take the lead on that and bring his article to you. Concerns about legislative removal of wildlife management tools in Oregon. Marie Newmiller brings us that story. As I told you here last week, I got a chance to go to the Fur Taker of America's Trappers College in Indiana, so I'll bring you a little bit more on that. Governors across the Southeast pay special recognition to sportsmen and women. Another collaborative edition from both Connor Barker and Mark Lance. And then we wrap things up with Jake Gould reporting on mentored and youth hunts. They help build the future of conservation. Well-timed article there with seasons kicking off. All that and more. Let us get to some quick housekeeping and then to Chris's article. The Pop for Conservation raffle continues. Still got that going on, so I invite you to head to pop4conservation.com, P-O-P, the number 4conservation.com, pop4conservation.com. Head there, get your tickets, register. You can be in on vehicles, hunting equipment, hunting trips, all sorts of gear. Check it all out there at the website, pop, the number 4conservation.com. All right, let's get into it here. This from Chris Horton. July 11th and 12th marked the beginning and the end of the 2025 South Atlantic red snapper season. Unfortunately, anglers have been subjected to a federal management model in the South Atlantic that rewards a rapidly rebuilding red snapper population with few red snapper fishing opportunities. A decade ago, anglers faced a similar situation in the Gulf of America red snapper fishery until it reached an inflection point of highly frustrated anglers, states, and policymakers. The result of that perfect storm was the transition to a highly successful model of state management in the Gulf recreational red snapper fishery. CSF has been encouraging a similar path in the South Atlantic since the Gulf Council officially implemented state management in 2020. The highlights here. Over the last decade, red snapper populations in the South Atlantic have rebounded fast and faster than anyone could have expected, while access for the recreational angler has been severely limited or non-existent. Recently, the South Atlantic states sent a letter to members of the Congressional South Atlantic Red Snapper Task Force that lays out their plan to get out of the current management paradox. Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina sent a joint letter to the co-chairs of the Congressional South Atlantic Red Snapper Task Force that provided an outline of a plan to transition recreational red snapper management to the states. This is a significant first step in providing more access to a sustainable red snapper fishery in the South Atlantic, which has been a top priority for CSF and the recreational fishing community since the same highly successful state management approach was implemented for red snapper in the Gulf in 2020. Longtime listeners of the show will recognize this as Chris and I have talked about this very model, this issue in the past. And Chris has done a very good job of highlighting the successful state management programs that have borne out far better data and allowed for a more localized red snapper fisheries management to the benefit of anglers. Let's continue. Despite the highest red snapper population abundance ever recorded, the 2025 season in the South Atlantic was measured in mere hours, whereas in the Gulf, many state red snapper seasons have been open for months and remain open today. The underlying reason for these highly disproportional season structures rest with recreational landings data between the two regions. Recreational anglers in the Gulf were facing similar melting point not too long ago. So each state took charge and began developing their own recreational data collection program to supplement or replace MRIP, which was never intended for in-season management. I just harken back to that. The South Atlantic states are now proposing a similar path, beginning with developing, testing, or improving existing state data collection programs. Quote, since going from red snapper seasons measured in days to seasons measured in months in the Gulf, we have been hopeful that the South Atlantic states would embrace a similar path and develop their own more reliable recreational data collection program, said Chris Horton, Senior Director of Fisheries Policy for CSF. Chris continues, we are very thankful to see that the South Atlantic states are taking the reins on behalf of both their anglers and better science, which will ensure future fishery sustainability while providing appropriate access for the recreational community, end quote. Currently, with the development of state recreational catch data collection programs through exempted fishing permits over the next 3 years, the states propose working through the South Atlantic Fishery Management Council on an amendment to the Snapper Grouper Fishery Management Plan to implement state management of the recreational sector following the completion of the EFPs. A very similar approach was undertaken by the Gulf states that led to the successful implementation of red snapper state management in 2020. CSF greatly appreciates the leadership of the South Atlantic states and stepping up to the plate to find a better path forward for red snapper management in the region. We stand ready and willing to help through the council process and through any necessary congressional action to ensure their success. That is a great follow-up, again, as I mentioned there in the middle, to conversations about this very issue we've had in the past. So great to see forward movement on that. All right, this from Marie Newmiller. Concerns abound following the legislative removal wildlife management tools in Oregon. The Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife Commission's recent updates to hunting and fishing regulations aim to balance wildlife conservation with recreational opportunities. However, continued legislative restrictions on things like predator management threaten effective management of species like mule deer, which are declining due to both predation and habitat challenges. New for 2026, the hunting regulations shift eastern Oregon mule deer hunts from wildlife management units to deer herd ranges to better align with their movements and more effectively or more evenly distribute hunter effort. The Oregon State Agency, their presentation showed mule deer populations are on a downward trajectory with predation, habitat, and human impacts such as vehicle strikes and outdoor recreation like mountain biking have negative effects on population. Commissioners identified legislative restrictions on management tools as a limiting factor for effective management moving forward. The Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife Commission convened on September 12th to finalize the 2026-27 sport fishing and 2026 big game hunting regulations. A key focus of the meeting was updating regulations to address declining mule deer populations, particularly in eastern Oregon. After extensive research involving GPS collar data, the state agency introduced a significant change to mule deer hunting by transitioning from wildlife management units to deer herd ranges. This shift aligns hunting areas with the natural movement patterns of individual mule deer herds, aiming to improve hunter distribution and reduce pressure on struggling populations. Specific changes include controlled hunts in units like Hepner, Fossil, and Biggs, with tag numbers adjusted based on data to promote sustainable harvest. However, the commission expressed deep concern over broader challenges facing mule deer. Charts presented during the meeting illustrated a troubling downward trend in mule deer numbers, driven largely by predation and habitat loss. Commissioners voiced frustration that legislative actions such as Oregon's 1994 ballot initiative, banning hound hunting, and more recent predator management regulations have stripped away a critical tool for managing predator populations while the department works to improve habitat. CSF emphasizes that the North American model of wildlife conservation, which relies on science based management and sustainable use, is undermined by such ballot initiatives and referenda. These measures often prioritize emotional appeals over data driven strategies, leading to unintended consequences for species like mule. The Commission's efforts reflect a commitment to adaptive management, but the loss of tools can tie their hands or hinder efforts. As the agency navigates these challenges, the balance between public input, legislative collaboration, and scientific wildlife management remains critical to ensuring the long term health of Oregon's mule deer and other species. Not every state, as we've covered, has ballot initiatives. We're in the somewhere on the order of 24, I believe. Um, as highlighted in Colorado in 2024 with Prop 127. Fortunately, it was defeated, but in this example, or as Marie reports in Oregon, these emotionally driven, non science based ballot initiatives don't go the way Colorado went for us. And as a result, you're stuck in this quagmire of an inability to properly manage all species. Taking away these tools and as Maria has illustrated, tying the hands, and what can you do? So now, no hounds, no predator management, and you have a species like mule deer that are taking a nosedive. You must continue to beat the drum and be engaged, especially when these ballot initiatives come up. That science rules the day, and listen to the professionals at the state agencies. That is what worked in Colorado. Wildlife Council specifically worked very well, but allowed the information for the state agency to come out, collaborative efforts with state in-state partners, the state legislative sportsmen's caucus, our partners there for CSF. The entire community was able to come together and fight that. States like Oregon don't necessarily have such output, such collaborative efforts, and Oregon specifically, you guys gotta figure it out, because more is coming. There's no doubt, and it's not gonna help any of it out. Any of the critters on the ground, any of the habitat, it all is tied together. And those very mountain bikers that are having a negative impact on mule deer populations, If you don't have good habitat and a place and wild places to go, I'm not sure where you're going to ride your bike, maybe down the urban streets, but connecting dots. All this to say, these ballot initiatives, um, at the very least, the threshold needs to be moved up where it's not already, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So a lot of these places, you need a 50 plus one. You just need a simple majority on the vote. And when it comes to issues of wildlife management, we at CSF and partners would very much like to see that threshold increase to 2/3. Um, if folks are serious about this stuff, if they really want their emotional argument heard and they really want to protect everything from predators down to uh, fill in the blank with a non-game species of little consequence, whatever they want to put their money behind, they're going to have to make that commitment and put that effort, and that means they're going to have to do grassroots. They're going to have to do significant fundraising. They're going to have to fund a marketing campaign to the constituency in the state to sell their argument. So when people go to the ballot, they're convincing them to vote the other way. If they are that passionate about it, they shouldn't have a problem with an increase of that benchmark. And we at CSF have prepared and already have examples of where this has worked and are ready to provide to policymakers in the states where this can get done. Um, we'd like to work together on those items and, like I said, increase that threshold and really make the other side work for it. Make your case, prove it, and get the votes. And again, Marie's article is chock full of great in article links. And this is about the time in the show where I ask you to go to congressionalsportsman.org. There you can sign up for the EPUB edition of the Sportsman's Voice. Comes out every Monday or Tuesday where there is a holiday. Follow the in article links. Uh, this will get you to the 26-27 sport fishing and big game hunting regulations for Oregon. A link to deer herd ranges, learn more about that. And then there's also an in article link to learn more about ballot initiatives and referendum. Just a great example there of further resources and more deep diving that you can do by simply going and signing up for the TSV EPUB. It is free. All right, let's get to this report from yours truly. So, as I said last week, I was with our partners, Fur Takers of America. They put on a Trappers College in partnership with Purdue University, the Indiana DNR, and it is just a fantastic course of instruction. Aside from being partners, um, certainly the goal of our attendance, my attendance, was to build upon the knowledge, the advocacy we already have at CSF and bring and just gather more and being able to be there on the ground, working with professional trappers, some of the best in all of North America, um, to have conversations, to ask questions, to really talk about issues of the day around trapping, uh, further experiences and ideas of dispelling the common myths that are out there, seeing the modern techniques, the technology that goes into traps that are already approved via the BMP, the best management practices scrutinization that is made up of wildlife science professionals as well as veterinarians. Um, so taking those already approved humane restraint devices and further improving on them for the comfort, the health of those targeted species as well as non-target catches, right? So that we're simply just restraining and being able to release unencumbered, if not just inconvenienced for a little while, and returned to the wilds to do their thing. Case in point, It was a goal. We had observed, found some badger, um, dens, sign diggings, if you will. And I have never personally seen a badger. So I said, well, I think this is a cool opportunity to see if we can trap a badger. And a couple nights we did. And that species was able to be released unharmed, got to learn about them, got to see their habits, and got to prove that this highly scrutinized, vetted equipment does exactly the job we're looking for it to do. Simply restrain, no harm, and be able to release. And it was just a great example of that. I'll bring you back to some of the article here, some points to touch upon. Some of the instruction that was included: professional trapping techniques, public relations and trapping, fur bearer management, new trap types, avoiding non-target catch, wildlife disease and human risk, wildlife biology, behavior and habits, and much more. So the college was held at the YMCA Camp Pato Wamp. I can't even say it. Potawatomi in Wolcottsville, Indiana. Um, Great place, really nice digs, and they did such a great job. So we had field instruction in the Pigeon River Fish and Wildlife Area that is managed and authorized us to go out there via the Indiana Department of Natural Resources, with Purdue University leading that. What was really cool about this is you had about 50 students made up of all different professionals. So you had wildlife professionals from different state agencies, conservation officers from different state agencies, ADC professionals, animal damage control folks, and just regular part-time trappers, folks just getting after it in their local vicinity, their backyards, trying to improve and learn more. Yeah, it was a up before the sun and back in bed well after the sun. It was like 16 hours a day of field and classroom instruction, and all of it was so great. Building off of what I said earlier, extensive research on restraining traps has been conducted through the annual appropriations from Congress to the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies. Such research resulted in the development of best management practices in 1996 through science-based management coupled with BMP. CSF has been able to successfully advocate for the important role trappers play in conservation. The curriculum covered at the FTA College further supports and updates methods for restraining trap modifications to keep fur bearers comfortable and unharmed, as I stated earlier. Of note, CSF has successfully defeated legislation related to fur bans, broadly written animal cruelty bills that do not account for wildlife management practices, equipment bans, and more. This year alone, we saw 69 trapping related bills across 27 states, and another 12 were introduced in Congress. This professionally instructed and operated course of instruction by FTA and FTA certified instructors is an opportunity not to be missed. Those of you, if you're listening, you lead your state agencies or you're in a position of power to send your employees that are wildlife managers, you definitely should think about sending them next year. It's so valuable. Trappers at all levels should also find their way to the college at least once, because I think it'll just give you a, if you think you know it all already, you're going to find out a whole lot more you didn't know, and it just really builds on making those of us who do trap go out there, be more proficient, get better at the trade, and just you can always get better by learning, and that's what this course provides. For policymakers, the college can be extremely beneficial for self education, dispelling common myths and disinformation about trapping. And it allows you guys that are policymakers to make informed decisions when crafting such policy. With myself representing CSF completing the course of instruction successfully, I bring back to our staff, and we are now able to bring still greater experience, education, data, and facts to our advocacy for of trapping to the legislative sportsmen's caucuses we support through the nation and better serve members as a resource concerning issues around ethical trapping and protecting trappers who are keystone conservationists. Through CSF's partnerships with Fur Takers America and the National Trappers Association, we continue to collaborate on issues of concern, such as how our community communicates about trapping, how we talk about and present the benefits of trapping that matter. And recent trends and research shows that when our storytelling is articulated well, general public becomes more receptive to modern trapping and the benefits the trapping community provides. These trends and more have been covered at past NASC summits with FTA and NTA speaking on topics such as fur bans, meso predators, and ground nesting birds, and dispelling myths around modern trapping. Armed with the most current information on management, fur bearer life cycles, equipment technology, and current perceptions of trapping, CSF will continue to build upon our successful advocacy for trapping with the education the FTA College provides. I'd like to thank our partners for the opportunity and look forward, like I said last week, to a feature edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast, total college uh, coverage, some guests from FTA that were there on the ground and in leadership positions bringing that. So we thank them. And one last note before I check out on this article. One of the really important pieces of this, there was some presentations on communication. Now, for some of us that have been in this, it's kind of old hat, but I thought it was very valuable for younger participants, people that were new to trapping, some of the younger professionals from the wildlife agencies on how to talk about trapping and strategy around that, how to react to news outlets, reporters that are looking to seek interviews around a certain trapping issue, if there's a regulation update, if there's policy being presented. These are important skills to have, just not flying off the handle. The words we use, the presentation, it all matters. And FTA and some other research has borne that out. So really talking about the benefits that trapping community provides to the state agency, that biological data, boots on the ground, reporting observations, not just on the fur bears, but other species, game and non-game species alike. The significant cost savings that trappers provide to the state agencies. This is all very good stuff, and then hit on the wildlife disease, human interaction part too. I mean, there were so many benefits to managing fur bears to humans, not just other critters on the landscape, um, with communicable diseases, things that quite frankly will kill you out there. So aside from rabies, there's a whole host of germs and bugs some of these critters carry and can hurt the folks you love. So anyway, that's it. Bow on that. It was a great trip, great experience, and I highly recommend it to anyone interested in trapping or wanting to learn more. All right, governors across the Southeast pay special recognition to sportsmen and women. National Hunting and Fishing Day coming up this Saturday. Recognizes the immense contribution to that sportsmen and women have made to support our time-honored traditions. In the Southeast, members of the National Assembly of Sportsmen's Caucuses and the Governor's Sportsmen's Caucus, whether they're active sportsmen or women themselves or not, recognize that hunting and fishing is much more than a favorite pastime for many other constituents. As I said, this Saturday, National Hunt Fish Day will recognize hunters and anglers for their role as America's original conservationists through the contributions to conservation through the user pay public benefit structure of the American System of Conservation Funding. Highlights here. On August 13th, Governor Sportsman's Caucus member Governor Tate Reeves held a National Hunt Fish Day proclamation signing ceremony alongside Mississippi Legislative Sportsman's Caucus members, Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, leaders, and representatives from the sporting conservation community. On September 4th, GSC member Governor Brian Kemp also recognized National Hunting and Fishing Day with a proclamation signing ceremony alongside Georgia Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus members, Georgia Department of Natural Resources leaders, and members of the sporting conservation community. And then on September 18th, GSC member Governor Kay Ivey welcomed Alabama Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus members, Alabama Department of Conservation and Natural Resources leaders, and representatives of the sporting conservation community to Montgomery to celebrate Alabama's hunters and anglers by signing another National Hunting and Fishing Day proclamation. So, what do Georgia, Mississippi, and Alabama have in common other than muggy September temperatures and great college football teams? That is editorial there. I don't want to set anyone off by that last statement, but we'll let it sit. We'll move on from there. Governors that support their respective states, sportsmen and women, and the significant contribution they make to support conservation and the economy. Sportsmen and women are the primary funders of conservation and professional science-based fish and wildlife management, which generated a combined $189 million for conservation in Alabama, Georgia, and Mississippi alone last year. CSF is honored to work with a bipartisan network of governors as part of the Governor Sportsmen's Caucus while simultaneously working closely alongside their respective state legislative sportsmen's caucuses. Thanks to this strong network, Georgia is on the cusp of passing House Bill 451 when the General Assembly returns in early 2026, following near unanimous support for the initiative earlier this year. Going west, Mississippi celebrated several policy victories during the 2025 session, including poaching restitution legislation that further codified the public trust doctrine in Mississippi, as well as the passage of legislation to create a wild turkey stamp, which will provide dedicated funding to support wild turkey and wild turkey research in Mississippi. Finally, CSF looks forward to working with the bipartisan GSC and National Assembly of Sportsmen's Caucuses network to welcome legislators, sporting conservation partners, and state fish and wildlife agency staff from around the country to Memphis, Tennessee, December 9th through the 12th for our 22nd annual NASC Sportsman Legislator Summit. The NASC Summit will be co-hosted by the Mississippi and Tennessee Legislative Sportsmen's Caucuses and the only national conference for state legislators dedicated to advancing America's hunting, fishing, recreational shooting, and trapping heritage. Go to the TSV article, the EPUB. You can click here in our in-article app to go register and bring you right to the summit page. CSF would like to thank Governors Ivey, Kemp, and Reeves for publicly supporting their respective states' sporting conservation community and looks forward to working closely on a variety of policy initiatives during the quickly approaching 2026 legislature. Yeah, great stuff. Not much more to elaborate or opine on there, other than maybe me stepping in it on behalf of Mark and Connor with the perspective-based only good football teams. I digress. Let us get to our final article of this week, and this from Jake Gould. We're talking about mentored in youth hunts for the future of conservation. Well timed here with many seasons opening and youth seasons right on our doorstep. Let's get into it. Youth hunting seasons allow young hunters to participate before the general season, giving them a chance to learn without heavy hunting pressure. Mentored hunts pair experienced hunters with new sportsmen and women of any age, offering hands-on guidance and experience in the field. Both programs play an important role in Hunter R3, that's recruitment, retention, and reactivation efforts. In the Great Plains region and across the country, state wildlife agencies have recognized the importance of recruiting the next generation of hunters. One of the strategies used is youth hunting seasons. These opportunities typically occur before or alongside the regular season, giving youth hunters a less crowded, more supportive environment to gain experience. By lowering barriers to entry and creating positive early experiences, youth seasons play a direct role in building future participation. The North Dakota Game and Fish Department provides youth hunters with a 2-day waterfowl season for residents and non-residents under the age of 15. Additionally, North Dakota offers a youth deer season that lasts 9 days, allowing youth hunters to hit the field ahead of the start of the regular deer season. Early opportunities allow inexperienced youth hunters to become more comfortable in the field before more experienced hunters apply pressure to targeted species. 9 days is a long time. Good for them. That's great. Equally as important are mentored hunts, which allow experienced adults to take a new hunter out of any age under direct supervision. These hunts offer in the moment instruction on everything from firearm safety and ethical shot selection to field dressing and conservation principles. Mentors serve as role models who teach new hunters the importance of hunting and hopefully continue to keep the new hunter engaged into the future. During the North Dakota youth season, each youth hunter must be under the direct supervision of an adult, creating an opportunity for tenured hunters to share the field with youth hunter and pass on their sporting knowledge and experience. CSF will continue to work with state agencies and legislators to create new opportunities and protect existing opportunities for youth hunters to hit the fields and woods and be exposed to the thrills of hunting while learning firsthand the value sportsmen and women bring to conservation. Thank you to Jake for that reporting. Yeah, take a kid hunting. Even if it's not your kid, if you have the time, take them out. That's great. Make sure they're learning from the right folks and getting out there and doing things right and reminding them not everything you see on TV is is real or the expectation. I think that's also another important point to impress upon these young folks or even the emergent onset hunter there, if you will, for the mentored hunts. It's important stuff. Good for North Dakota having a 9-day deer season. That's awesome. Uh, where I live here in the Northeast, it's very crowded. So, those youth seasons are wildly important, just it's not even like the pressure on the critter itself. It's just the foot traffic and forests. And so many people on the coast can appreciate this or built up areas around cities. Once you finally get out of the concrete jungle, it's still that urban sprawl fragments our wild forests and fields and so much land privately held, different rules in different states, it makes it really hard. So when you finally get a piece of land that you can hunt and probably others can hunt, like that's a lot to keep up with for the young folks. And it's nice for the adult hunter too, because you can focus on the kid, you can focus on the mentee on those mentored hunts and focus on what you're out there teaching them and safety and all that without worrying about, someone in the orange army walking up on you or having to worry about them. Like it's a definitely consideration and part of the field experience outside of those youth seasons. So take advantage of them. It's a great opportunity for all involved. All right, we'll leave it there. That's our show for this week. September 22nd this week. Holy smokes. Continued success of field for those who are already out here probably in about a week. Everyone I think will be into something. So be safe out there. Get home to your families. Good luck filling tags. Shoot straight. Do all the right things, and have a lot of fun. This is a lot of fun. This is what we work towards. Um, all year long with with us at CSF, our advocacy, making sure we're working with our policymakers to advance good policy and protect what we have, and keeping the bad stuff down. And then other people at the state agencies, the managers, the wildlife managers, our partners. This is the crescendo. This is what we build up to, and I hope everyone's getting out there to enjoy something over the next few months here, and just have fun with your family, friends, and put some good protein in the fridge, the freezer, and on your dinner plates. So we'll leave it there. That's it for this week. No feature this week. So you go back, check out some other old episodes, take your time digesting this one, and we'll see you back here next Wednesday, and then a feature for the following Thursday. As always, CSF is your inside connection to outdoor legislation. We'll see you next Wednesday. So long. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, your support is crucial, and you can help us out right now by leaving a review, filling in those 5 stars where available, sharing this episode with friends and family, and engaging with us socially. CSF can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Together, we can protect the outdoor sports we love and continue to keep you informed wherever you are. That's it for this week. Until next time, we'll see you later.